Hey everyone, welcome back. This video is about a Doctor Who cat, which is featured on EGM's Geek page on Facebook if you want to check it out. But anyway, so this was a commissioned piece for a friend of mine. He wanted a Doctor Who cat, I guess, as a romantic overture. So anyway, let's begin. I started by doing some line art, which is unusual for me. Also, I don't usually do anthro stuff because it has sort of a dark, seedy underbelly, which I don't really want to get into. But anyway, so here we go. I'm not actually a big Doctor Who fan. I've never actually seen an episode, not because I have any issues with it, but I just never got into it, never had the chance to really watch. So I guess I sort of have to now, but more on that another time. So anyway, I have some reference material which I very foolishly left visible after merging layers later on, but we'll get to that when that comes around. Anyway, right now we're just trying to refine the image. The cat uh, that Doctor Who is supposed to be was sort of free reign, and I chose an Abyssinian just because they have I don't know, they seem kind of like a clean cut cat, sort of like the Doctor Who reference images I was given. You know, there are there are multiple doctors for any Doctor Who fans know, and this Doctor Who is a little less shaggy than the others, so I went with a little bit of a cleaner looking cat to represent him. One of the stipulations was that he had to have the same sort of faux hawk. So this cat has a faux hawk. Um, and now we're just kind of working out the details of the suit. I usually actually have a lot of trouble doing clothing. It shouldn't be that difficult, but it is, at least for me. What I usually do is I just sort of try to throw down shapes, and the problem with clothing is that it drapes itself over form, and you sort of have to really think about the forms beneath before you can start working. Also, clothing will not fall evenly everywhere. There are stitches and hems and whatnot going on. So some parts of clothing are more rigid than others, and these have to be considered. For example, in suits, the shoulders tend to be more rigid and padded, so they won't slump as much as the sleeves or the pant legs. Also, you have to remember that there's pleated folds and cuts, so certain places will fold and move more naturally than others. Anyway, I had a really hard time drawing the cat's face. I don't draw anthro a lot, like I've said, and I actually very rarely draw cats for some reason. So, it was kind of a learning experience. But the final product I'm very happy with, so I think it was worth it. I originally was going to have him standing on I don't know what, but I feel like, I don't know, floating in space was more fitting for some reason. So that's how he ends up being, as you can see right now. Also, the TARDIS please call box has to be in the picture, so that'll be added in a minute. And that was actually probably one of the harder parts or not harder, but tedious parts, just because I hate doing geometric objects because if the perspective is off a little bit, it's really obvious. And the TARDIS has a lot of straight lines on it, so it's not fun to draw. Another issue I have with cats, like I said, I don't do them very often, and I have a lot of trouble making them look different from dogs because they both have the same little triangular noses and little cheeks and stuff. So, and their ears are both pointy. So if you don't quite get all the cat or feline features in there, it ends up just looking like a weird dog. So anyway. All right. Rather than just try to do the TARDIS from scratch, I'm just going to be pretty much tracing over the lines of a miniature, just to save time. Also, it guarantees I have a one-to-one relationship with the actual image. So here we go. Sweet. All right, trying to refine some of the lines. Ugh, kitty faces are so hard. Yep. So sometimes I'll leave notes to myself so I remember what I was thinking as I narrate. But essentially, I couldn't get the kitty face just right. There's some Abyssinians for reference. Adding some noses and chins, and this is where I realized that cats don't have chins, or at least cartoon cats don't have chins. Here's a super cutesy version, kind of funny. This was inspired by looking at some of the Aristocats images from the Disney film, and as you can tell, the way they drew the cats, they look like dogs, just dogs with pointy ears and little muzzles. I tried doing sideburns at first, but they just didn't work on this face. And on to coloring. Got a nice chocolatey color for the suit. And he's got some red chucks on. Gotta get his shirt. I actually didn't do the tie the same way that it is in the picture. Kind of kicking myself for that now, but it turns out fine. Oh man, now this is where it gets really hard, is coloring the cat. The fur. You'll have to excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold. I had some medical issues this week, and essentially I couldn't eat for 3 days, and my system got shut down, and now I have a cold. Alright, coloring in the TARDIS. And some cat eyes here. I'm just using round brush. Looks like 95 or something. Yeah, 95 to 100% opacity for the colors. And I'm doing all the colors as they're just normal underneath the line, I believe. Now, Abyssinians have a lot of variation in their fur patterns, as you can see from the two reference images. So I had a little bit of free range here. Now I wanted it to look like an Abyssinian and not a tabby or something, so it's kind of tough because Abyssinians aren't that well known of a breed comparatively to, like, Persians or tabby cats or calicos or black cats or something. What's also difficult is that when you color things, it can imply depth by the shades that you're using or the tones you're using. I guess the tone's the right word. The tones I'm using. So the coloration on the face is darker in some spots, and it makes it look like it's more recessed into the face, but it might not actually be. So it's something that can make the form a little bit more difficult to establish. Alrighty. Doing a background here. Just kind of a answer a quick Skype message. A little bit more of the liquefy. Now it doesn't even look like a cat anymore is the problem. Doing some pinstriping. Now pinstriping you have to be very careful because it's a really great it adds a lot of detail to the clothing, which is awesome. It makes it more interesting, but it's also a very powerful tool for defining form and shape because the lines will follow the contours of whatever clothing the character is wearing. So if it's not done correctly, it can actually ruin a lot of the shape you've been working out or a lot of the geometry you've been working on. And I know a lot of artists, especially the more I don't want to say painterly because that's not the right word, but a lot of the more kind of free flow artists will just sort of throw down a bunch of pinstripes and not really worry about perspective, and it looks nice. It's an artistic choice, stylistic choice, but I kind of like to do more, I don't know, realistic approach, I guess. I never feel confident enough to just do something like that. People like to do it especially when they're doing what's it called, plaid. A good reference for this is like in Samurai Jack, the Scottish character, his plaid is just it's always the same perspective. Or even better is on I think it's Cartoon Network. What's the show called? Chowder. Yeah, a lot of the textures in Chowder are done this way, where it's just a mask. Whatever the character's clothes they're wearing is just a mask, and the textures don't move. Anyway, so now we're doing some shading using multiply layers, but the thing is that the actual design isn't solid yet, so this is all gonna have to be fixed. Here I am defining the shadows around the body. These came out really nicely. I was really happy with this. Oh man, and the hypersonic screwdriver is gonna need some work later, just to make it look chrome. And yeah, the TARDIS is gonna get a lot of attention later. All right, so this is another issue because I'm working on the face and finding forms, and it's not consistent. There's no real form right now, so every time I add a shadow, it just gets more confusing. Also, the nose and the eye are crooked, or the eyes, I guess, both are wrong. I'm just adding some bigger highlights really quickly. And now I'm painting over the lines, which I used to hate, but I don't really mind it so much now. I think it's just sort of, I've just sort of ingrained it into my system of work that, or my process that, this has to be done, so I might as well just do it. But I make some good progress on the face here and really fix it up. So definitely worth it. It's actually sort of funny because this is done over a series of recording sessions because I have to take breaks and run out of time during the day or something. And sometimes when I watch this, it looks like a different artist suddenly steps in because I get I get fatigued after a while of working. So it's good to take a break and come back with fresh eyes and fresh attitude. And I did a lot of refining here of the shape of the cat's face, the Doctor Who face. And the ears too, I made them actually match the images, the reference images a little bit better. Oh, and as you can see, I haven't noticed it yet, but all the reference images have been imposed on the background as one layer, which was a big mistake by me, but whatever. Alrighty. So now I'm adding some highlights using a color dodge layer. And these also help to pronounce the shapes and the form of the face. I tried to do sort of like a star, but it didn't really work. Now he's starting to look a lot more like a cat, which is good. He looks way more feline than he did before. Now he looks like an Abyssinian with hair. Weird, right? But we're actually going to add the sideburns in a moment here after I fix up the hair's edging. I have to make it look more like actual hair and not clumps of I don't know what. So here come the sideburns. Sideburns are tough because they're really facial hair, and obviously cats already have facial hair everywhere because they're covered in fur. So it's weird when you have to give an animal like sideburns or a mustache. You sort of have to try to accentuate the natural hair, but in this case, I just sort of made it look like a wig or something. All right, so Chrome is difficult because it's super reflective, but the problem is if it's too reflective and too mirror-like, a lot of the form gets lost. So I actually did struggle with this a little bit. In the end, I just had to dumb it down and make it look much more simpler, and that worked. You'll see it coming up. Also, I realized that I was painting the hypersonic screwdriver incorrectly, so I had to go back and fix it. Um, there we go. It has all these little fins in them, like a glass dome at the top and stuff. So I tried to sample the fingers and colors around to have them be reflected in the appropriate faces, and I think it turned out okay. And then from here, it's mostly painting over lines and refining shape. Also, I totally forgot that cats have pads on their paws, so those had to be painted in, and that will happen momentarily. Excuse me. So a little more color dodge here. Help define the shapes, add some highlights. Really makes the metal look like metal here. An underlight and a rim light. And now I'm adding the pads. It's funny because they're so cutesy. Little kitty pads. And just erasing the lines, or painting over the lines, adding another kind of hinted at finger there. It's tough to do cat paws anthropomorphized because they have claws which are kind of creepy and scary looking, and you have to make them look less threatening than they are. And more rim lights and bounce lights. Those rim lights on the far hand came out really well. I was really happy with that. Oh man, here comes the lengthy part of fixing up the phone booth, the TARDIS. Or the public call box, I should say, I'm sorry. To all the Doctor Who fans, I apologize for my lack of Doctor Who knowledge. I think that you can't be too upset with me, as this piece did come out pretty well. Despite Doctor Who being a cat. So what I'm doing now is I'm just using the polygonal lasso to define those hard edges and just fill in the chunks that are wrong. And I do a little bit of brushwork here and there, but I really want to use the polygonal lasso because it just keeps things geometric. I'm accentuating the shadows and cleaning up the edges, kind of painting over the lines a bit. Oh, so I spoke to I guess, the commissioner, and he wanted his glasses that are similar to the ones that Doctor Who actually wears occasionally to be on the cat. So there are his eyes, which were used for reference. And I'm painting in the frames now. And you're going to say, hey, where are the little things that hang over the ears? And I'm going to say, well, they don't fit on a cat's face, so they're not here. And actually, the glasses were really easy to add. Pretty much, I just did a silhouette, and then just added some facing, some lit facings, and that's all really I had to do. A little bit of shadow, of course, as you can see. But other than that, it was pretty simple to add in. Ta-da! Yay! Oh, and a little bit of a reflection from the surrounding fur, and a little bit of glare in the glasses. And a little more shadow, of course. Alright. Alright, so we're doing some more paint overs here. I really like the way the shoelaces came out. They look really like they're free falling and very 3D, so I was happy with that. and just refining the highlights, smoothing out some of those highlights. I didn't want to smooth them too much because I really like the texture that I created on the rubber, so I had to be careful to kind of keep that. And also I realized that the sole was way too thick on the Converses. Wow, the tracking is terrible on this. By tracking, I mean the mouse tracking. Camtasia usually does a very good job, but it's not doing a great job today. I'm actually kind of upset with Camtasia. Later on, it deleted one of the recordings I'm doing, so I'll talk about it when it gets there. But anyway, Camtasia, no, bad Camtasia. All right, so we're just cleaning up these edges, making the shoe look more like a shoe, fixing up the shoelaces and the tail. Had to smooth out the highlights on the tail too. It didn't look like it had the right sort of volume. All right, so here we go. Fixing up the phone booth, or the TARDIS call box, excuse me. And what I essentially did was I defined 5 colors. Yeah, 5 colors. One is the face that is facing the highlight side, or the lit side. Then there's the highlighted face, which is on the top of the TARDIS box. The shadowed face, and then there are variations of the shadow and the highlight depending on what facing they are. So the extreme highlight, the weaker highlight, the extreme shadow, and then the weaker shadow. And those are applied consistently over the box in order for it to have the right consistent lighting. This did take a bit. I'm really glad I did trace that box to begin with because the perspective was right, but it actually ends up getting fixed, which you'll see in a second. I think that's because I used the distort tool and it threw it off a little bit. We're just doing the hinges and stuff. There's a lot of details. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of doing geometric objects. I probably should just do these in Maya, but I don't have time to do that. I guess this saved time. I'm not sure. It came out fine though, so no problem. Yep, here I am fixing the perspective. Look how quickly I paint in those changes. Amazing. And there I am fixing the pinstripes to make sure the form is correct. And voila. Perspective fixed. Amazing. Doing that little light thingy at the top. I probably could have done those with simple brush strokes, but I wanted to keep things consistent. Oh, the windows. Oof, those took a while to fix. They're also tough because there wasn't a lot of area to work with. As you can see, I'm not using any perspective lines here. I'm just sort of eyeballing it just to get it done quickly. Oh yeah, text layer. Combine them, rasterize, and distort. Brilliant, I know. Voila! Alright, now this is where things got messy. So here's the last frame of what I was working on, and like I said, the recording cut out and didn't save. So I'm going to describe what I did as the scene transitions. As you can see, here I fixed the background and removed all the reference material, as well as added some lighting. Next, I believe I add some stars. Yep. Add some stars, recropped, did a little bit more highlighting, add some patterns to the background. Here I flipped it around because I thought the composition was better, but I forgot that the writing on the call box had already been established, so that wasn't really possible. I also added in these Aurora Borealis type effects. And now I'm adding a flare to the glasses and the tip of the hypersonic screwdriver, as well as the call box light. And here it is in the final form. It was a little bit of a pain that the recording got deleted, but in the end it turned out okay because if that had been recorded in true time, it would have been done in about 3 seconds and you wouldn't be able to see what I was doing anyway. I also added some aerial perspective between his feet and the call box. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that recording. It was a challenging piece, but a fun piece, and I'm very happy with the result. Like I said, it's available to see on EGM Now's Facebook Geek page, so you should check it out. Give it some hits. It'll make me happy. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again.